Let me first ask, Chuck, you talked about the difference between the Cherokee Nation and what was the other?
The United Keetoowah Band of Cherokee Indians, UKB.
What's the basis of that? Why is this difference going on?
The Cherokee Nation is the same Cherokee Nation that was here before anyone ever heard of the United States.
Yeah.
The first treaties were Cherokee treaties between the Cherokee Nation and the United States in an unbroken manner to the present time. The United Keetoowah Band of Cherokee Indians in Oklahoma was created by a statute in 1946 by this Congress as a band of Cherokee Indians, is literally what the statute says, and recognized in 1950. The issue relates to the authority to govern the reservation, of which we possess exclusive authority. And what we have found, though, is confusion among agencies that begin to stand up federal programs, fund healthcare programs that are duplicative. I mean, you could literally go into our capital and see that there are our health system, which is the gold standard in Indian country, and another health system cropping up using taxpayer dollars. This is the fiscal insanity that I'm talking about. And it's something we work very hard to address, and we think that the committee should scrutinize any request that is duplicative, and we can flag a number of those, including healthcare, JOM, and others.
It's duplicative because of the way DOI does things?
It's duplicative in the sense that if we're administering health care, for example, we provide it to all members of every federally recognized tribe. And we have put decades of work into it to the point where we have, I really do believe, the gold standard. And so seeing additional, very scarce federal dollars go into building up a duplicative healthcare system, I think if any American looked at that, they would say this does not make sense, and it doesn't make sense.
But what I'm asking is that duplication because of the way we're appropriating dollars or the way DOI is administering?
It's the way the agencies, including DOI, are administering that. We think it's non-compliant with the law, and we think that the committee has a role in scrutinizing requests that plainly set up duplicative systems, and we have flagged that in the written testimony in particular.
Okay. I got in this and I forgot what I was going to ask you. I had something. Let me turn it over to Shelley and I'll think about what I was going to ask you.
Great. Well, thank you, Chief Hoskin. It's nice to see you again. And I will say when I had the opportunity to visit your community, seeing the medical school was really impressive, just the idea. And I think the chair was talking about this earlier, the importance of training people in Indian country to go back and work in Indian country. And not everyone will necessarily, and some people will come in from the outside, but it's such a critically important thing to do, and to have a high-quality medical school. I'm thrilled to hear you have a nursing school as well. Yes. And I will definitely read through all the testimony and get to know better some of the challenges that you're talking about. But thank you for being here with us today, and thank you for being here. And I know, I think you both brought this up a little bit, but, some of the challenges through McGirt and then through the Castro-Huerto complications on top of it boggle my mind, but it is something I think the committee keeps in mind all the time with the unique situation that you have there in Oklahoma and this sort of jurisdictional challenge. So our full chair isn't here, but when Mr. Cole is here, we can usually get a few extra dollars out of him if we just say the word McGirt. Okay. So I've learned to put that in the top of my vocabulary just to help us increase our allocation, because we just know that's really it's a big bill, but it also addresses one of those challenges that we see a lot about this jurisdictional issue and sort of a unique situation that you have in Oklahoma. So we'll continue to do whatever we can to help.
Thank you, Ranking Member. Dollars are always welcome, and certainly the capacity building that I mentioned relies on appropriate funding. However, addressing the legal jurisdictional problems created by Castro-Huerta remain a priority, and there are a dozen cases right now where folks are improperly referring to Castro-Huerta's dicta to argue that our sovereignty does not exist. And until Congress can lend its voice to the clarifying the very devastating Castro-Huerta decision, I'm afraid we're going to be spending dollars that could be going to public safety, could be going to health programs, fighting these these ridiculous arguments. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both for being
Mr.
here.
Elsie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for being here. Sorry I was a little bit late. I grew up as a neighbor of Oklahoma in the northeast corner of the Texas Panhandle, Perryton. Count the Kiowa as my neighbors. And I was noticing that the Cherokee and the Creek occupy about 15 to 20% combined of the territory of Oklahoma. And since I missed most of the discussion about what you gave in your opening statements, I was curious, with that big of a border in between your two nations, in what ways do you cooperate in ways that are innovative that we might be able to help out going forward, finding ways that your two nations can collaborate and we can assist?
Well, I would say, Congressman, that we have a great admiration for each other's law enforcement in this McGirt era, and our law enforcement agencies work well together. And if they, in law enforcement, if you're not working well together, people are getting hurt, people could be getting killed. It's unsafe. And so I think anything that can enhance the working relationship between tribes that, as the Muscogee Nation and the Cherokee Nation, not only share a border, but a border in an urban area, Tulsa, where there are great challenges for any law enforcement agency. So I think that's one way that we work together.
Yeah, and on behalf of my chief, I will always defer to leadership of any nation, especially Cherokees and my nation. But on behalf of my chief, I want to echo Chief Hoskin's comments. Historically, and I can say this because my wife's Cherokee, we fought for millennia. But that does not mean we don't have shared interests in supporting tribal sovereignty and protecting everyone in our borders. And that's been the biggest messaging point that we've tried to make. Despite the sky is falling narratives, we're good. Pandemic struck, we provided vaccines to everybody in our borders. Didn't matter if they were native or non-native. We are good partners to each other, but more importantly, we're good partners to every person within our borders.
Does Tulsa lie within completely the Muscogee Nation territory, or do you all split?
I think so. They have a little sliver up north.
Okay.
We have a good chunk of the.
So as we talk about the coordination of law enforcement, has that reared its ugly head in a negative way, dealing with the city of Tulsa and anything that might occur on the res with somebody coming from Tulsa doing something bad? I mean, because this is my third time doing this, and we continue to hear about the atrocities being committed by people who are non-native, and then fleeing justice. And I see some of our friends who are going to talk later about that. Is there something that we can improve in this committee with that coordination?
I think drilling down to the facts and frontline experience will be revealing, and if our marshal of the Cherokee Nation were here, our top law enforcement officer, he would share with you that the Cherokee Nation Marshal Service has an excellent working relationship with the Tulsa Police Department, cross-deputization relationship, but these really do come down to relationships, and I think that is a difference maker in Tulsa. In an urban area, there will always be an opportunity for those who want to create a narrative to find something that did not go perfect. I have not met a law enforcement officer that says every day is perfect. In fact, most days are not. But I think that if you go, what this committee could do is some real fact finding and sort of push through some of the rhetoric, the sky is falling rhetoric, with Jonodev and I have both been on the receiving end from some leadership in Oklahoma. I think you would see that the real reality is a real working relationship that protects people.
Thank you.
And I would just echo Chief's comments, but also my own comments about Castro Huerta. So when we're talking about a cooperative landscape, it starts with clarity. And unfortunately, while Tulsa has been, by and large, a very good partner, I'm not going to throw any counties under the bus or any specific municipalities. Not all counties and municipalities have been equally cooperative. In some cases, through lack of referral of information, there's been a direct attempt to sabotage those relationships and basically create a narrative where McGirt's a problem rather than an opportunity. So clarifying the jurisdiction's part of it, but Certainly funding. Everything starts with funding. We blend our own funds with federal funds to support our light horse. 133 officers is a huge force, but we are protecting everybody in a jurisdiction that has about 1 million people in it, along with our partners. So at least in Tulsa, things haven't been perfect, but things are good. I don't want to I'd be happy for our nation to follow up with more specifics if you'd like.
That's what we're here to do. We're here to try to improve it, and if it's already working well, and you guys said, you're increased, but it's not enough. And so that it's an evolving process where as long as we're making progress, that's what I'm interested in.
Yes.
Thank you. I yield back.
I appreciate it. Now I remember what I was going to – it was about law enforcement when you were talking about your 130 officers and stuff like that.
Yes.
Are there cross-deportation between your two tribes?
Cross-deportation between – I don't know that there's cross-deportation.
Well, there's a whole slew of historic cooperative relationships. So, Chief Hoskin works with the Intertribal Council that has a public service a public safety funnel to it. So our officers talk on a daily basis. We're clear where our jurisdictions begin and end, but it's seamless across our border.
I would agree with that. And our top law enforcement officer knows the Muscogee Creek Nation's top law enforcement officer on a first-name basis. And if there's an issue, there's a phone call, not a let's pick up sides here. It really is.
Because I got to tell you, in all honesty, jurisdictional issues on reservations are confusing as hell to me. And it depends not just, what happens if one of your tribal members commits a crime on your reservation? What happens if it is a non-member, white guy that comes on your reservation who has jurisdiction? I get so confused when I start looking at the jurisdictional issues, and I think it leads to an awful lot of problems in terms of when you look at the murdered and missing Indigenous women and stuff. We had the FBI in here and everybody else testifying and stuff. And I'm just shaking my head at the jurisdictional issues. I'm one who believes that it's your reservation, you ought to be able to do what you want on your reservation. And that's – but we seem to complicate it a lot.
I think there is complications caused by the government of the United States, but I think to the extent that there are dangers, it's created by gaps in resources. And so to the extent that tribal nations are able to put their own resources and have federal resources brought to bear, the complexity can be understood, and the relationships matter, and the funding matters. And so in a complicated world that may be difficult to unwind over the centuries at this point, I think bringing our best effort to law enforcement, and it really is about relationships, makes a difference in our in Cherokee lands, and I see that in the Muscogee Nation as well.
And Chairman, I appreciate the insight of your comment in terms of taking the handcuffs off of tribes. So one of the reasons we're like a broken record about this Castro Huerta decision is Indian law was complicated enough, but to try to pretend that a reservation in Oklahoma is different than reservations elsewhere creates a whole additional level of complication that law enforcement, that prosecutors have to deal with. When I practiced for 20 years, and reservation was a reservation. And that's important because if you're talking about local solutions to local problems, there's no better friend than tribal nations in terms of going after bad guys and keeping people safe in within our borders. If we don't have authority to go after bad guys, we have to rely on other agencies' priorities. There's an old saying that nobody washes a rental car. If we have to rely on the U.S. attorneys, great as they are, and FBI to have our priorities in terms of going after bad guys, we'll never be able to go after bad guys. Same thing with the state. So we are partners, and it comes down to funding and jurisdictional clarity. So we are a broken record about Castro Huerta, and there's some ridiculous dicta in that decision. But we're working through it, and we're working through it in the best interest of everyone in our borders.
I appreciate that. And I will tell you, last year we had a hearing on murdered and missing Indigenous women, which is a travesty in this country that we're going to address. We had lady testify. She was a member of their tribal council. When she was a young girl, she was abducted. She was taken to a cabin, held for about a week, raped, beat up, all sorts of stuff. And then she was dumped off the reservation, alive, off the reservation. So all of a sudden it was, well, whose case is this? She couldn't identify the cabin that she was held at. She could identify the person, but she couldn't identify the cabin. So they're sitting there, is this an FBI issue? Is it a county issue? Is it a tribal issue? Who's got jurisdiction over this and stuff? And I'm kind of going, this is crazy. That's today, that individual that held her is one of her constituents. Now that's a tragedy. And that's what leads me to this. We got to solve this somehow. And I'm more in that camp of, as Congressman Elsie said, nobody cares more about tribal members than tribes do. And you guys ought to have jurisdiction over your tribes and your territories on your reservation and stuff. And somehow we've got that's deeper than what our committee does here on appropriating money. But we need to get the Resources Committee and some others involved, and we need to solve this damn problem. But let me congratulate you on your educational initiatives. I've always said that the only way you're going to get doctors, dentists, nurses, others, professionals out on some of these reservations that are a long way from nowhere is to educate the tribal members and let them become the doctors and dentists and stuff, and they're more likely to come back and serve the tribes and stuff. So I congratulate you on that. Anyway, thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate it. Look forward to working with you as we put together this bill this year.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, I know. Yeah, that's right. James Naranjo, Charles Riley. How you doing?
How are you, sir?
Good. James, you're up.